Why are the division games seemingly so difficult?
Well, you're familiar with people, so you're familiar with them, they're familiar with you, so sometimes they can get more difficult for everybody. You just you played against the same players, you've not just studied them on film, you've actually gone against them, you have your film against them. So there's just a lot more familiarity, and the more familiar you are with people, the more it can be more difficult for both sides. It can also be better, too, because you do know them so well. But then there's always that factor of, because you play them often, there's this back and forth of, are they going to change? Are they going to be a little different? You just don't know.
McCaffrey made some big catches in this game. He also averaged 3 yards a carry, which is very un-Christian. How close is he to being Christian, the Christian we saw last year?
I think he's I hate saying he's not there because he is always there, but everybody needs time. We've talked about during the training camp with Trent, training camp with BA. It's always guys need practice. He need practice time, and I thought he was on point last week, very, very good. And I thought he was on point in the run game. The runs he had were, you have to ask him whether he felt he was off a little bit or not. There was probably one run that could have been a little better, but overall, I think we just didn't probably provide him enough space last week. And then some of it might have been him situations. I don't remember all of his carries, to be honest with you, but yeah, he looked great last week. I think there is always that. I thought he did a great job of protecting the football last week. That's always my biggest concern was a guy gets out there the first live reps of the year. You don't have the preseason games. You have not the first. It's your first live reps, and everybody's in midseason form. I think he did a great job protecting the ball, and so I say, I think he's right there. It's hard for me to say he's not. I hate saying that about the guy because the guy's so darn good.
The Tampa Bay game was. I know you're not huge on stats, but I guess the first time in 20-some games you didn't get 100 yards rushing. Did you feel you struggled to rush the ball, or was that the flow of the game? Or
there was obviously we had some. I think we had some carries that we probably left some yards out there on, and whether it be a block that was just missed, a run that was just missed. There was just one of those things. It came out that way, and it wasn't. It was obviously not what we like to, not our normal production in the run game. But I don't think any of us walked away saying, "Oh my gosh." We didn't. We saw the ops were there, and we missed some ops, and that's what happened. And the way the game flowed, how well what was going on with the passing game and everything else, just kind of flowed to a point where we said we need to throw the ball to give some more chances for the guys to make some plays, and that's what we ended up doing. But really, I think it was a little bit like the combination of everything. Didn't get enough carries, and then when we did get the carries, somebody was off somewhere, and that's what happens.
Your guys' defensive line is not as deep as it's been in past years. Do you guys get together as a staff and say, hey, look, we need to start playing? You guys are dominating time of possession, but do that even more to try to protect that defensive line as the season progresses?
There might be some conversations. We don't do it as a staff. There might be some conversations, with Kyle and with Nick, and they might discuss some of those things. But for the most part, the game plays out as it does. Now, we obviously have a plan every week based on who we're going against as to how much, we do what we do, and that's what the time of possession is what it is. But some weeks you have to be careful. You have to be very careful. I know. Yeah, we went one time up to, I'm sorry with the story, but went to Buffalo to play with Jim Kelly was up there when they were really, really good back and going to Super Bowls and everything. I was in Minnesota, and on the plane, all of a sudden, Tony Dungy was sitting next to Brian Billick, and Brian said, hey, we're planning on going some no huddle and up tempo. And Tony was like, oh my gosh, we're going up tempo? The last thing I want is for Jim Kelly to have more time. We should be trying to milk the clock every second we get. And so that led to a discussion as to how we might approach that game a little differently based on the conditions that day and everything, where we needed to milk the ball a little bit more. Although there was still a time to do some change of pace stuff that would help our offense be more successful. But that always is part of the planning every single week.
Would it surprise you if I told you that on first down inside the 10-yard line you've run 19 times and passed 3 times?
I wouldn't. I think that would be probably accurate. I don't know.
Do you feel like you have an opportunity to be? Do you feel like you're getting a little bit too predictable on first down?
No, I never feel predictable because I think every single call has a reason. So that's why it's really hard for the struggle with analytics in that regard. I think everything's a statistic of one. That play, that situation, that time, what did we think we were getting and why did we call that play? It was, we're just going to prove that we can run or prove that we can throw it. It's that there was a reason for all those calls. And whether they're having success or not, now did we misjudge the reason? Did situations? So never predictability. It's always, because I don't think we, for 1 minute, we're doing it because we think it's the best play to call. That's what I think it is. And that doesn't mean that we're misjudging it. It sometimes means the defense does something different. Sometimes it means that we don't execute it properly. There's so many factors that go into it. That's why I go into, this is on a tangent a little bit, but I just think everything that when you say, well, teams that go for it on 4th and 1 here, well, there are so many variables that go into every one of those calls to say that yes, it's a general statistic, but overall, all those things are just, man, it's a statistic of what was play 1 of the 19, and what was the situation in the game, and why did we call? What was play 2 of that, and then play 3, and so, as I say, if somebody said, hey, what's your run here, Chris? As I said, I'll take and say, well, I suggested this and it stunk, or it was, that's on me. But how and why, that's a hard one for me to say. It's predictability.
You guys ran for 200 and something yards in the first matchup against these guys. Chris, talking to us about the front, because I know that Draymond Jones is playing outside linebacker. He's 285 pounds. I mean, have you ever seen a 285-pound outside linebacker?
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, they're big. They're a big physical group. They do a good job. And, we hit a few. We creased a couple early, and then we had the big run at the end. Obviously, you get 70-something yards on the last run of the game almost, or one of the last runs of the game. It does help your statistics. But, they're a good front. They have a very good philosophy, a very sound defensive philosophy, and sound defensive. They coach good techniques. They're an improved team over the last time we played them, and they'll be a huge challenge for us. Obviously, people that can try to set edges on our offense, that's always a big challenge for us. And then how the rest of the front plays according to the edges being set challenges us greatly as well. 99 did a great job against us last game. They all did. They had a heck of a game. We just, we had a chance. They get the kick return. They get back in the game. It's nip and tuck till the end, and we break the long run at the end, and then Juice sneaks one in there at the end, and we end up making it a little bit better, a wider margin of victory than maybe it had been most of the game. So, but they're a challenging defense. Thank you very much, guys.
Go ahead. Questions?
I want your take on Deommodore Lenoir's contract. We talked a little bit about it yesterday, but obviously he's on the defensive side. So.
Yeah, really excited for him. Well deserved. He's done everything right. He's been so productive inside and outside. He's just been a stud. He's increased in his play every year, and just really happy we got it done for us and for him. Really, to know that we'll have him for so many more years is really exciting. It was really exciting yesterday talking to him, and I was just fired up.
Only because you mentioned you guys having it for you. What is it that he really just brings out there that no other Niner brings when it comes to the secondary? Just
his play style and his versatility. He's selfless. He's a pure football player. And to see that, there's some people that, the old thoughts that can be put out there that, guys that play nickel also won't get paid. It's hard. I think it's really, really hard to be able to do both. We've been saying that consistently over and over, and I feel like there's more value than people realize. I think people who, know football know that that's hard to do. And for him to do it so successfully that he can cover outside, inside, because a lot of offenses can move their receivers around, but you also have to fit like a safety and a linebacker, but also cover that guy really well too. So, it allows us to do a lot with him, and he does it really well. So it's really huge for us to get him, and just excited that, we did, and really for him too, because he deserves it.
What's the mental preparation for having those dual roles as far as preparing for an opponent? Do you have to study more receivers than you would normally?
He just has to do both. Our linebackers, we ask a lot of them too. They have to, with some of the routes they have to cover and fit in the run game. He just get reps and study it, and that's why it usually takes longer. That was part of the reason why, when we got Renardo, I was really, adamant about getting him started at nickel, because it's definitely harder. So I wanted to put the tougher stuff on him early, then move him outside, and that's just part of the process. You just needed a lot of reps. And like I said, he's just gotten better over time.
In that same vein with Fred, we see the product on the field, the performance and all that production. When you see him behind the scenes, the work he's putting in terms of film study and all those things, what are kind of your observations of just
Fred?
Yeah, the level of work that he puts in.
Yeah, you can't say enough about Fred. You could ask anybody. He is a true machine when it comes to preparation, both mentally and physically. He does everything right. He takes care of his body. He practices the same way that he plays every single day. Probably since day one, since he's been here. I wasn't here when he first got here, but I know that's for him to be able to step right in and take over like he did, especially at the Mike linebacker position where he's making all the calls. He's such a great communicator, but it's just he doesn't change ever. It's just so consistent, and that's why he plays the way he does.
There is so much that you put on his plate because of his position, but how easy is it to I guess maybe not easy, but how difficult is it not to put too much on, to kind of rein things in terms of, we could ask him to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, he's been in the same system for so long that he's just gotten really good at it. So it does take time, but like I said, he puts so much preparation into it. It matters to him, and he's the best, So he's really smart. He's really physical. He plays fast. But when you can be smart like that, it allows you to play faster. But he also trains like that every day. So it's not something that he just turns on game day. It's just part of who he is because he does it all the time. And as far as, we definitely try and push to have more. I mean, I try and push to have more guys communicate around him, because it is a lot to, make all the calls and everything. And our guys have done a really good job. That's why I always talk about, when you guys ask about the safeties and young safeties, for me, it's the communication. And our guys have done a great job with that, with Tig and Malik. So that's been really good.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's
Nick,
right.
Bosa and Floyd are playing a lot of snaps. 86% for Bosa. It's as far and away as career high. What's the plan to make sure those guys get to January? Is Matos coming back? Are you looking at free agents? How do you help those guys?
We try to, but we want to win the game. And I think it's something Bosa, he's willing to do. And obviously you want to protect him, but there were a couple games early on we didn't have as many snaps either. So you can talk percentage, but it's also depending on the game. I think that happened early in the year at a high percentage, but some of those games we were in the 50s. So it really depends on the game situation.
Why have you guys had so much success against Geno Smith? A guy that's putting up big numbers, but you've had his number.
I wouldn't say we had his number. I respect the heck out of Geno. I was with him in Seattle. I mean, I always, even when he was backing up Russ, and everyone in the building there respected him too. He's got such a great arm, a great attitude. He prepares, and he can still move, even though he is a little older, but not really quarterback-wise. He can still move. He's got great vision. He can make all the throws. And he's strong enough and fast enough to escape. But he's the type of guy that has the right mindset, and you see it on tape, and you see the way that he plays with, whoever it is out there. He gets the best out of them.
They struggle to run the ball consistently. Seattle has, and it seems like a few times you guys have games this year where you played a team that struggled against the run, but when you go against them, your preparation is always, well, they're going to try this week.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah. Well, the first time we played him, I think going into it, Kenneth Walker the previous week only had 5 carries, so it was you just feel like that's not what they want to do. Now, some of their games have been out of hand too, or like out of balance, and when they're in balance and the game's close, what was it, the Rams, I know it went to overtime, but they ran the ball 33 times, so I feel like they do want to be balanced. When you really look at the games and you watch how the games go, it just depends on the situation, and that can happen to anybody. I think they truly do want to be balanced. Yes, they do spread out and do a lot that way, but with the talent that they have, even Charbonnet is a good back too, but Kenneth Walker is extremely talented, so I think they do want to run it, and we want to take it away.
How much bigger is Deommodore Lenoir than his actual size, especially when you see him going up against a guy like DB Metcalf, who really outweighs him? Yeah,
I mean, DK probably outweighs almost every corner he goes. I can't imagine. Probably half the linebackers too, but Demo's he's tough, he's strong, he's stout, he plays that way, whether it's in coverage, which is tough because some guys at the top of the route can get pushed around, and he generally has the ability to stay sticky to a guy, which is another thing that, allows him to be able to play outside as well as inside, because he still has the quickness inside to go with being able to trigger in the run game, fight off blockers and go make tackles on bigger running backs. So that's really the value, like I said, that Demo brings, is being able to do both.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.